I think we can all agree that that was more like it from Arsenal. Pre-season has given us a range of performances, but our 3-0 win against Athletic Club, which we are going to analyse in detail today, felt like the perfect final examination to kickstart the season and give us some much needed momentum going into our game against Manchester United in a week's time. If I left the Villarreal game asking for specific tweaks, but also for Mikel to double down on some of the tempo and the ideas that we saw in the first half, before we fell back on some more familiar stumbling blocks in the second, I felt, then yesterday not only delivered on those requests, but added many more revealing details that today's video is going to get stuck into. Welcome back to the Harvey Gratian YouTube channel. I'm so glad you found us or are joining us once again. And there is a lot to talk about. So let's get started with that Rice and Zubimendi pairing in midfield. One I've been talking about since the arrival of Zubimendi, but one finally with an on-pitch sample. This double pivot, if you want to give it a loose term, is all about complementary energies for me between Rice and Zubimendi. Let's give an overview first though of Arsenal's balance as a whole in possession against Athletic Club, because Martin Zubimendi and Declan Rice were the base of this. Zubimendi and Rice's heights, their angles, their sides, continually adjusted and changed over, and I can't wait to break down the impacts of this in just a second, but the domino effects of this more typical tilt or balance to our in-possession dynamics, with Rice slightly deeper, were Calafiori being freed up in that off-ball roaming role he suits perfectly, mostly pinching into that high left pocket but also rushing on the outside of Martinelli, rotating with Rice or creating a midfield three. On the other side, Martin Odegaard wasn't our on-ball hub like he normally is, but it was about how he moved throughout the spaces our build-up rotations afforded him. That might be swinging and joining in deeper, but equally we saw him float on top to tie us together, or just recognise that there wasn't always the need for another player coming towards the ball that I think it's fair to say we felt in times gone by. We see this here with Declan Rice and Zubimendi swirling. Saliba's intent to kickstart those sequences, playing inside a block, has been notable by the way throughout pre-season, and we can stack that now with Zubimendi, who punches it into Kai Havertz, who knocks it onto Odegaard, who instead is offset higher on the blind side of his marker, with space given to him due to Saka's presence, who he finds wide. Let's look at how this finishes too. For the reasons we've just mentioned, the right back, but particularly Ben White, often became that width holder for us, and what was nice to see is that he became that width holder often in our deeper and middle third stuff, and with Odegaard more focused on plugging holes than being a standalone progressor, and this freed up Bukayo Saka. And this is just a teaser of what's sort of to come in this video, but spinning back to that other passage, we end with Martin Odegaard slipping in White, and then Saka becomes that half-space runner on the right hand side that he has so often, ironically, required. One last thing though with this team-wide balance. Zubimendi may have been our organiser of the axis, remember that term Xabi Alonso used to describe him, but the reason he was this is not just because he sits, but because how he adjusts according to the players around him. He might place himself inside higher pockets, for example when Odegaard does drop, but likewise funneling himself out to right centre-back, which has all kinds of nice knock-on effects for our right-hand side composition. But enough of how Rice and Zubimendi gave us this base, let's dive into more of the specifics of their partnership. This is simple, but I think telling for those complementary energies I spoke about earlier. Zubimendi takes it on his back foot, drives in between a couple of pressers, draws the game to the left-hand side, repositioning himself as Rice opens up and pings one of many switches we saw to Bukayo Saka. Another clear focus, I think, of our upswing in tempo in pre-season. What was most satisfying about Rice's role yesterday was not that he was purely behind the ball or just rotating with Zubimendi or just rotating with the left back, but it was because he was still allowed to make his barrelling runs from deep or his box crashing, for example. These became doubly dangerous because especially when he's playing that high left centre mid role, these runs become our entire strategy for stretching a back line. You don't need me to tell you that if you've got Gyökeres hunting off the shoulder, Rice and Calafiori arriving late, White's outside help, you keep a block much more watchful, and he creates spaces to work with. And if Rice has a wide man he can combine with, and not the responsibility to anchor us, but add value across the pitch wherever he sees fit, where he sees advantages, which may include joining the right hand side, that's a much better fit. And how this pair, plus Odegaard and Calafiori joining in, kept the game flowing, meant that things never felt static, and suddenly little gaps or small windows are suddenly maximised much more. Here, Declan Rice stacks, Zubimendi wriggles into the space, meaning when Saliba misses out wide to accelerate play into Odegaard, we've stretched things without trying, and Gyökeres immediately pulls into that channel to be hit in behind. I've spoken so much, I know, about Zubimendi, and yesterday I think his impact was pretty much his full bag of tricks, and as I said, there's a real final third implication to this too. How often he uses those first time passes, or can burst through a small opening, or recognises open space further afield, like his combination with Saka here, who cuts it back then as he gets into the final third on the floor. Those of you who watched my last video will know that for Gyökeres, I'm very happy about this, even though he mishits the effort. Oh, and by the way, as I said in the scouting report on Martin Zubimendi, if he manages to add a few more of these killer balls, he genuinely reaches a joke level of player. This hasn't even started discussing how springy, how front-footed, how intelligent his out-of-possession work has looked this pre-season. Arteta, after the game, emphasised the exact same things that I've done. He called it another evolution. But this has been a long time coming if you've watched the channel for a while. Will it be another tool, or will it become more of our default strategy? Only time will tell. But there can be no doubt that Calafiori fits this perfectly, this template, this blueprint perfectly as a left back. And this is not about Calafiori or Lewis-Skelly or Calafiori against Gabriel, but simply having available to us someone with this kind of urgency, ambition, who sprinkles in some chaos as an option in the squad. If you've watched just the volume of off-ball movements Calafiori makes in this passage, how he balances what we've already discussed, how he's inside, then outside, then in between, flicking first time round the corner to Martinelli, who, because of Calafiori, was able to carry the ball through much more interesting angles to usual, dashing up on the diagonal, here drawing a foul. And when Calafiori is this extra man, probing for unique spaces to occupy, to combine with others at weird and wonderful angles, there may actually be no better player out there. Here he's swirling, receiving off Rice, bouncing it first time into the, as a result, freed up Martin Zubimendi, who uses again his first touch to redirect it to Gyökeres. Calafiori is back again to combine with the Swede, who carries us up the pitch, finds Martinelli, and this shows, I think, the benefit of having players like Calafiori, Zubimendi, Gyökeres, Martinelli, all in the final third, because both Zubimendi, who is so proactive with these slip balls or clip passes in and around the edge of the box in the centre of the pitch, and Calafiori as well, who can punch passes through the middle. When we attempt these passes, it may be lost like it is in this sequence, but look at the counter press, and remember, being happy about losing the ball more is something that I want to have seen and have seen this pre-season. And this transitions us nicely into a larger talk on our cadence of play, our directness, our greater use of 1 and 2 touch passes that is mostly, I think, informed, as we've seen, by simply who is on the pitch. But this has been more a staple of pre-season. Saliba can fire it inside a block, Odegaard can bounce it to Zubimendi, who immediately knocks it over to Saka, seemingly without thought, but really, it's just because Zubimendi's first 1 or 2 touches are always in his head. We've seen the different angles and the speeds we can create on the left-hand side with this kind of balance, with Calafiori's impetus, Martinelli and Gyökeres' crisscrossing, which is a dynamic I really want to see more of and explore further. But as I briefed at the start, we've also seen an uptick in how early we've wanted to hit Bukayo Saka, whether that is through a Gabriel or a Declan Rice switch, a Zubimendi first timer, Gyökeres or Havertz drifting and pinning defenders on the right hand side, a Calafiori drive inside, an Odegaard through ball, Saliba's missing out of players, White's freeing up of Saka in the pockets, or White's clip in behind. Basically, more higher and hopefully maybe more central touches for Saka, the better. And it's where his efficiency, I think, is really made to count. Now, I don't want this And I want to make this clear. I don't want this to make out that Arteta has finally given Saka freedom for the first time. But it is the first time that we've had this mindset, I think, to access him and these different avenues to play the ball into him in these zones. Things happen at a pace in this sequence. White nudges high and wide. Odegaard's movement become more of a decoy than give me the ball. Saka isn't static but hunting. Zubimendi of course sees that, and when Saka can eliminate carry and field like this as he brings in Gabriel who speeds it up again to Madueke, these are the types of conditions on paper that you actually want to give to Madueke when he is playing on the left wing. Green grass ahead of him, space to gather wind in his sails with, which means when he arrives in the 1v1 moment, it's almost impossible to start him, creating that kind of separation that he explodes with down the line. Sometimes when Saka does come in field, it feels, I think, certainly in seasons gone by, that he's searching for the ball almost impatiently because of being doubled or triple teamed. But yesterday, and we need a larger sample, it felt like the team was looking for him. And that's wherever he was on the pitch, because he was also happy to hang on the last line, as we saw for his goal. I liked how clustered we are here, which is how you use Gyökeres, I think, when you are being more direct and playing over the top of the press, because if you can't get Gyökeres spinning and leaning in behind, he isn't going to leap and flick the ball on with his head like Kai Havertz. So let him battle, let him draw men in, and his combination here with Odegaard is brilliant. Odegaard plays the first time pass not once but twice, the second releasing Martinelli in behind, who again is doing that crisscrossing we saw in the first half against Villarreal, and Saka is also alongside him, and in a flash we've gone 2-0 up. When Havertz came on later in the second half, he provides an alternative and equally as threatening relationship, it's important to add, with Saka, rotating with him, allowing Bukayo to almost make more strikery runs here. And for Kai Havertz's goal, it shows you the value of getting Saka closer to the centre forward. These reverse balls or sweeping through balls are a skill set we haven't tapped into as much as we should. We've seen a Saka assist to Havertz like this in the game last season at home against Brighton. And it shows you as well, speaking about Kai Havertz, when he's in this frame of mind, what his stride, his surge can do off the last line. And certainly when he has a bit more strength and power like he has now, it's about not getting as caught upright for Havertz when he's charging in behind and not losing his feet as much under him. He's always had this speed and this directness. And incidentally, I was talking about this to someone in the comments last video. It's just about how much the team and he and Arteta emphasize and place emphasis on him being this stretching force in behind. Honestly, I wish I could talk about this game all day. I don't want to get carried away, of course, because I'm going to be really disheartened if we have finished our business in the transfer window now, for example, and if we don't add to the momentum a performance like this can build. With Manchester United coming up, regardless of their woes, we really needed this, you sense. And I'd go with at least 85-90% of the team that started against Athletic Club, against Manchester United. I might be able to get a preview for the game out in the meantime, but for now, I have a lot of dissertation writing to get on with. So thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.